Let me tell you a story. It's a story of resilience, determination, and the unyielding spirit of a woman who faced life's challenges head-on. This is the story of a woman named Sarah. Sarah was not just any woman. She was a single mother, a warrior in her own right, fighting battles that many of us can only imagine. Sarah worked 2 jobs, tirelessly moving from one to the other, her days blending into nights. She was constantly on her feet, always on the move, trying to make ends meet. The exhaustion was palpable, but she never let it show. She wore a brave face, masking the fatigue that threatened to overwhelm her. Despite the relentless grind, Sarah's love for her children was unwavering. She hugged them tightly every chance she got, drawing strength from their innocent smiles. The weight of the world was on her shoulders, but she carried it with grace and an unbreakable spirit. Every day was a battle for Sarah, a battle she fought with every ounce of her being. She faced each challenge with determination, refusing to let the hardships define her. The bills kept piling up, a constant reminder of the financial strain she was under. Each envelope that arrived brought a new wave of anxiety, but Sarah faced them head-on, determined to find a way through. Keeping food on the table was another daily struggle. Sarah would often go without, ensuring her children had enough to eat. She prepared meals with love, even when worry etched lines on her face. Sarah tried everything. She worked longer hours, cut back on expenses, even took on odd jobs, but the worry persisted. It gnawed at her, stole her sleep, and cast a shadow over her life. She was trapped in a cycle of fear and despair, a cycle that felt impossible to break. One Sunday morning, feeling utterly defeated, Sarah wandered into a church. The weight of the world seemed to rest on her shoulders, and she felt as though she was drowning in a sea of her own troubles. Her life had been a series of unfortunate events, each one more crushing than the last. She had lost her job, her home, and her sense of purpose. The church, with its towering spires and stained glass windows, seemed like a sanctuary from the storm raging inside her. She wasn't particularly religious, but she was desperate for a miracle. Sarah had tried everything she could think of to turn her life around, but nothing seemed to work. She had reached out to friends and family, but they were dealing with their own struggles and couldn't offer much help. She had sought professional advice, but the solutions seemed out of reach. In her desperation, she turned to the one place she had never thought to seek comfort: the church. As the choir sang and the pastor spoke, something shifted within her. The hymns, filled with messages of hope and redemption, resonated deeply with her. The pastor's words, though simple, seemed to speak directly to her heart. He talked about the power of faith, the importance of community, and the possibility of new beginnings. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt as though she wasn't alone in her struggles. She felt a connection to the people around her even though she didn't know them. A tiny spark of hope flickered in the darkness. It was a fragile thing, easily extinguished by the harsh realities of her life, but it was there. She clung to that spark, nurturing it with every word of the sermon, every note of the choir's song. It was a glimmer of something better, a promise that things could change if she just held on a little longer. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. It was as though a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders, and she could finally breathe again. The sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows bathed her in a warm, comforting glow. She closed her eyes and let the peace envelop her, savoring the moment of respite from her troubles. It was a fleeting moment, but it was enough. That small spark of hope, that brief sense of peace, gave her the strength to keep going. She knew that her problems wouldn't disappear overnight, but she also knew that she had found a source of strength and comfort that she could return to whenever she needed it. The church had given her a glimmer of hope, and that was enough to carry her through the darkest of times. That day marked a turning point in Sarah's life. She began to pray. It wasn't just a fleeting moment or a passing thought, it was a profound shift, a deep and abiding change that would alter the course of her life forever. Sarah had always felt a sense of emptiness, a void that nothing seemed to fill. She had tried to find meaning in various pursuits, but nothing ever seemed to satisfy that deep yearning within her soul. Not out of obligation, but out of a deep yearning for something more. This yearning was not new. It had been a quiet whisper in her heart for years, growing louder with each passing day. She had always been aware of it, but had never truly understood what it was or how to address it. It was as if her soul was calling out for something greater, something beyond the mundane routines of daily life. She started reading scripture, finding solace and guidance in its words. The Bible became her companion, a source of comfort and wisdom. Each verse seemed to speak directly to her heart, offering insights and revelations that she had never considered before. The words of the scripture were like a balm to her weary soul, providing the peace and clarity she had been seeking for so long. Slowly but surely, Sarah began to surrender her worries to a higher power. It was not an easy process. It required a great deal of trust and faith. But as she continued to pray and read the scripture, she found that her burdens began to lighten. She realized that she didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her own. There was a higher power, a divine presence that was always with her, guiding her and supporting her. She realized that she didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her own. This realization brought her a profound sense of peace and freedom. She no longer felt the need to control every aspect of her life. Instead, she learned to trust in the divine plan, to surrender her worries and fears, and to embrace the journey with an open heart. This turning point marked the beginning of a new chapter in Sarah's life, one filled with hope, faith, and a deep sense of purpose. It was a daily battle against deeply ingrained habits of fear and doubt, but with each surrendered worry, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She found strength in her newfound faith, a strength that surpassed her own. Her life wasn't perfect, but her perspective had changed. As Sarah's faith grew, so did her peace. She discovered that true peace doesn't come from external circumstances, but from a deep inner knowing that we are never alone. There is a power greater than ourselves, a force of love that can move mountains and calm the most turbulent seas. Sarah's story is a testament to the transformative power of faith. It's about letting go of our need to control, our fear of the unknown, and surrendering to something greater than ourselves. It's about discovering an inner peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that sustains us through life's storms. This isn't about blind faith or ignoring the realities of life. It's about facing those realities with courage, knowing that we are not alone in the fight. It's about living a life guided by faith, not fear. A life where we acknowledge our limitations and embrace the infinite possibilities that come with surrender. We may not always understand why things happen the way they do, but we can choose to trust that there is a plan, even when we can't see it. We can choose to face the unknown with courage, knowing that we are held by a love that knows no bounds. So let go of the worry, release the fear, surrender to the divine, find freedom in the surrender, discover the peace that surpasses all understanding. This is your journey, this is your time. Let go and let God.